Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. As the global death toll from the new coronavirus crosses 13,000, 1 billion people worldwide are confined to their homes. Nigeria and Rwanda have implemented a lockdown, while Pakistan has shut down all shopping malls and eateries after a spike in the infections. What in this report?
The raging COVID-19 epidemic has forced lockdowns in 35 countries, including Australia, the US, and Europe. India has imposed a 14-hour-long curfew to limit the fast-spreading coronavirus epidemic in the country, while Cyprus, Gaza, Angola, Eritrea, and Uganda have recently joined the unfortunate club, reporting their first infections. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez warns the worst is yet to come.
Desgraciadamente,
Unfortunately, the worst is yet to come. There are still hard days ahead. We will still have to receive the impact of the hardest, most damaging wave, which will put all material and moral capacities to the limit, also our strength as a society.
But there appears to be hope, as China reported only one new domestically transmitted case of the COVID-19 after 3 consecutive days of no new cases. President Xi Jinping, after successfully bottling the pandemic at home, has called the leaders of France, Germany, Spain, and Serbia to offer support. The World Health Organization, too, sees China's containment of the outbreak a ray of hope for the rest of the world.
It's a message of hope. It's a message that this virus can be suppressed. We can break chains of transmission. It takes a huge effort. It takes an all-of-society effort. It takes coordination. It takes solidarity. It takes activated communities. It takes brave health workers. It takes supply chains that work. It takes commitment. So I think there's a message of hope there from China.
More than a third of Americans are in various phases of lockdown, with more states expected to ramp up restrictions.
Spain has reported 394 new coronavirus deaths in the country, which is up by 30% in 24 hours. The health ministry says Spain's death toll from the coronavirus soared to 1,720 on Sunday from 1,326 the day before. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez warned that the worst part of the outbreak hitting Spain is yet to come, while France observed its 6th day of lockdown, leaving the streets of the capital Paris deserted. The country's death toll from the virus reached 562. In Britain, Prime Minister Boris Johnson called on the public to join a collective national effort and follow social distancing advice, as the country's confirmed cases topped 5,000, leaving 240 dead. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Health Ministry has confirmed the first 2 cases of the virus in the Gaza Strip. Palestinian authorities have already reported 53 coronavirus cases in the occupied West Bank, including 17 recoveries. Meanwhile, Iran has refused US assistance to fight the new coronavirus, citing the unfounded theory that Washington made the virus. In a televised address, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said Washington's medicine could be a way to spread the virus more. The Supreme Leader said America is itself facing a shortage, so it should treat its own patients first. Khamenei said therapists and doctors sent by the US could be a surveillance tactic. He said the Islamic Republic has the capability to overcome any kind of crisis, including the coronavirus pandemic. Iran is the most affected country in the Middle East, with over 1,500 coronavirus deaths and 20,610 infected people. In India, thousands of city migrants are returning to their villages as their livelihoods collapse in the wake of the new coronavirus. This has raised fears the pandemic could spread to rural areas in one of the world's most densely populated countries. Details in this report. The number of coronavirus infections in India has crossed 290. 52 of these cases were detected in the western state of Maharashtra, where all shops and offices have been closed till the end of the month. This has caused a massive economic shock, hitting migrants from the rural areas the hardest. These people are now headed back to their family homes in droves, raising concerns about increasing the outbreak's spread.
The place where I used to work has been closed till March 31st, so that's why we are going to our homes.
There's already a crisis at railway stations where passengers have congregated in large numbers, turning them into a possible hotspots of infection.
We appeal to the people that they should not gather unnecessarily at station premises and ticket counters, and they should instead book tickets online. And they should not form a crowd at the stations by arriving before the scheduled departure of the trains.
The country's COVID-19 death toll stands at 5, but currently India is only testing 90 people a day, an extraordinarily low number for the world's second most populous nation. Experts have warned the consequences of this approach could become horrifyingly apparent in the coming days. A country of 1.3 billion people with weak public health care in its rural areas is a disaster waiting to happen. Moreover, in India, protests continue against the Discriminatory Citizenship Act despite curfew and the coronavirus threat. The Indian government has announced a 14-hour-long curfew across the country today in a bid to curb the spread of COVID-19. Women at Shaheen Bagh in New Delhi have refused to end sit-in despite the government's ban on a gathering of over 50 people. Talking to media, the organizers said not more than 50 women are staging a protest at any given time. Meanwhile, protesters at Bhiwandi city in Maharashtra state have also announced not to end the sit-in. The organizers said there will not be a large gathering, but only 5 healthy women protesting at a time in Bhiwandi. Meanwhile, India's internet ban in occupied Kashmir has hit education as students fail to send admissions and take online classes. The valley has been reeling under curfew and clampdown for the last 231 days. Talking to media, students said they cannot apply for the studies outside the valley because of the internet issue. The students said many of them started online classes, but internet suspension on August the 5th has halted these courses. He said the students said in the name of national security, Indian government is ruining thousands of careers. The communications blackout has already hit the health sector of the valley after it reported its first coronavirus case. The doctors and the health workers have asked the Indian government to end the communications blackout to counter the epidemic. 2 prisoners are dead and 6 others injured after fighting broke out in a Sri Lankan jail over the coronavirus restrictions. Tensions erupted at the Anuradhapura prison when guards tried to control the riot. Police said prisoners were complaining about the decision by the authorities not to allow the visitors as a move to contain the virus. They said in the commotion, guards opened fire to prevent inmates from fleeing and violence inside the jail. Sri Lanka has imposed a 3-day countrywide curfew since Friday as the number of the cases has risen to 77. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims he is nearing a power-sharing deal with his centrist political rivals. But Blue and White Party leader Benny Gantz swiftly denied the claim. In an interview, Netanyahu said under the agreement, former General Benny Gantz will replace him as Prime Minister after 18 months. He said he wants to form a government to confront the coronavirus crisis and end the political deadlock in the country. In a tweet, Gantz said anyone who wants unity does not impose ultimatums, hurt democracy, or paralyze the parliament. Last week, Netanyahu bypassed parliament and enacted emergency regulations allowing the security forces to use anti-terrorist cyber tracking of the coronavirus patients. In Libya, the UN-recognized government says a rocket attack by Khalifa Haftar's forces has killed 1 person and wounded 2 children in Anzara, south of Tripoli. Despite the ceasefire truce, renegade commander Haftar's militias continue their attacks. Yesterday, Washington backed the UN-facilitated dialogue among the warring sides for a lasting ceasefire. Earlier, the UN called on the warring parties to accept the draft ceasefire accord negotiated by the Joint Military Commissions in Geneva last month. The GNA has been under attack by Haftar's forces since last April, with over 1,000 people killed in the violence. Nigeria's government forces have rescued 9 kidnapped people during recent raids on the gunmen hideouts in the country's northwest. The military says, based on information from military intelligence, the troops raided the hideouts in Zamfara state. It says 7 men and 2 women rescued from the town of Gando have been reunited with their families. Another 22 kidnapped people were also recently rescued from gunmen's hideouts in the neighboring states of Katsina, Kebbi and Sokoto. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Mexico says 1 person was killed as a Navy helicopter crashed in the country's southern state of Veracruz. The Mexican Secretariat of the Navy said 10 other officers were injured in the accident. Veracruz Governor Joaquin Jimenez said the helicopter was carrying 11 people. He said the copter was on a mission to rescue kidnapped people in the municipality of Zongolica in the south. Mexico's Minister of Civilian Protection, Hugo Guterres, said a rescue operation is underway at the crash site and the injured are being assisted. A 5.3 magnitude earthquake has shaken Croatia's capital city of Zagreb, killing a boy and causing widespread damage. GFZ, German Research Center for Geosciences, says the quake struck at a depth of 10 kilometers. Many buildings in Zagreb have cracked and walls and rooftops are damaged. Downtown streets are littered with debris as concrete slabs fell on cars and chimneys landed in front of entrances. The earthquake struck amid a partial lockdown of the capital because of the spread of the coronavirus. Bolivia has postponed presidential election and imposed a mandatory countrywide quarantine for 14 days amid COVID-19. Country's electoral authority says new election date will be decided together with the political parties and the organizations. Bolivia has so far reported 19 cases of the new coronavirus. Interim President Janine Áñez said quarantine measures begin today and extend until April 4. Áñez said supermarkets, hospitals, banks and pharmacies will continue to operate as normal.
From Sunday, March 22nd at midnight and for 14 days, a total quarantine comes into effect throughout the whole country. It is a hard decision, but it's a necessary decision for everyone's well-being. From Sunday at midnight, we should be at home for 24 hours a day because we'll be safer at home. This is the best way to stop coronavirus.
Slovakia says it will ramp up efforts to fulfill its NATO obligations but will not escalate tensions with Russia. In a statement, Defense Minister Jaroslav Nat says the stall in Slovak activities seen during the last 4 years is definitely over. Nat said the new Slovak government will take a reserved position towards Russia. He said despite Russia's certain steps that cross the line of friendly relations, Slovakia will not escalate the tensions. This comes after a 4-party coalition government took office in Slovakia as an immediate policy change amid the coronavirus outbreak. The new government was approved by the President Zuzana Chopotova yesterday. In Bangladesh, 15 people have been killed in a traffic accident in southeastern part of the country. Police say 12 people were killed on the spot when a truck collided into a van in Chittagong. They said 3 succumbed to their injuries later in the hospital. One injured person, who is stable according to hospital authorities, is still receiving the medical care. Road accidents are one of the top causes of deaths in Bangladesh, with at least 4,628 people killed in 2019 across the country. Several hundred passengers are still stranded aboard the Costa Luminosa cruise ship docked in Italy's Savona port city. Italy's local media says the first batch of tourists, primarily Italian nationals from nearby regions, has begun to disembark. The local media says 84 people are in isolation aboard the ship after several coronavirus cases were discovered on it. The Italian authorities say they are discussing the procedure of the evacuation of the foreigners with relevant embassies. Another ship, Costa Victoria, is scheduled to arrive in Venice on 28th of March. Authorities in Italy's Veneto region have already denied docking on Costa Victoria. Researchers in Hong Kong say recovered coronavirus patients can be left with damaged lungs. Infectious Diseases Center director says lung function can decline by 20 to 30% in some patients after recovery. Researchers said computer tomography has shown fluid or debris-filled sacs in the lungs, which may get worse as illness develops. Earlier, in another study, scientists in Wuhan analyzed 140 lung scans of COVID-19 patients and found a ground glass opacity in both lungs of each patient. Lung fibrosis cannot be cured because the scarred changes in the lung tissue do not regress. The demand for lemon, ginger and garlic in Ethiopia's capital of Addis Ababa has risen significantly since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. More in this report.
Africa was slower to feel the impact of the coronavirus than Asia or Europe, but over 33 African nations have now reported more than 600 cases. Shoppers at the ANTI-CAA vegetable market in Addis Ababa can be seen filling their bags with lemons, ginger and garlic. The three ingredients are a component of the traditional drink dawa, meaning medicine in Swahili.
This is naturally rich in vitamin C and full of natural herbs like lemon, ginger, garlic, honey and seasoning flavors. I often use it to recover from the flu, and by the same token, it will certainly help me fight corona as well.
This has led vendors to hike the prices since the outbreak of COVID-19. Sellers, however, say they are serving the public by providing produce needed for medical purposes.
You won't see a lemon seller as such now because they're being hunted and arrested, accused of hiking prices. But you shouldn't blame them because the wholesalers have increased the prices. We're trying to help the public because these are wanted for medical purposes. We didn't increase the prices too much, it's just a bit.
The virus had infected more than 300,000 people globally and killed over 13,000.
The COVID-19 pandemic may have put a damper on Mother's Day in Lebanon this year, but 3 students have come up with a new service to celebrate the occasion without flouting social distancing restrictions. More in this report.
In a quiet Lebanese town under lockdown over the novel coronavirus, a drone buzzed towards a balcony to deliver a red rose to a mother grinning in surprise. Down in the street in the coastal town of Jobinai, 18-year-old Christopher Ibrahim texts a teenager who has ordered a flower drop-off for his mother. He slips a single rose in a ring hanging under the aircraft, and it lifts off into the air to carry the flower to its intended recipient.
The idea is I'm a drone operator. I film weddings and events with a drone. I'm studying engineering at the Lebanese University in Romania. So I come up with the idea of flying rose, where on Mother's Day we will deliver a rose to mothers via drone.
For a week, most of Lebanese have been ordered to remain at home to stem the spread of COVID-19. The airport has closed and all non-essential businesses have been told to shutter.
Another part of the project is about helping our country. Everything that we make from the project will be contributed to the Red Cross because they are the ones who need support the most during this period.
Ibrahim said each rose delivery costs between 10,000 to 20,000 Lebanese pounds. He added that the earning of this project will go to the Red Cross.
Amazon says it will stop shipping non-essential products to consumers in Italy and France. The policy is an escalation in the e-commerce giant's response to preserve resources in regions hard hit by the coronavirus outbreak. An Amazon spokesman said the company made the decision due to a spike in orders and the need to respect anti-coronavirus safety measures in the workplaces. Amazon considers baby products, health and household items, beauty and personal care, groceries and pet supplies as essential products. The world's largest online retailer said merchants on Amazon are open to sell and ship directly to customers in the region. Earlier this week, Amazon announced it will only receive vital supplies at its US and European warehouses until April 5th to free up inventory space. It also announced a raise in overtime pay for workers in its US warehouses, doubling the pay after 40 hours for overtime till May the 9th. Australia has announced an additional $38.5 billion in an emergency fiscal package, shoring up the government's total spending to $109 billion. Canberra so far has pledged around 10% of Australia's GDP in a bid to shelter country's economy from coronavirus. More in this report.
Global economy has been rattled by the coronavirus pandemic with a recession imminent. Governments, global financial and monetary institutions have pledged trillions of dollars to cushion against the economic fallout of COVID-19. Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison says the government is considering draconian measures to enforce social distancing to combat the coronavirus. Morrison said Australia will underwrite 50% in loans offered by local lenders to small and medium-sized companies.
The package of measures, combined with those we've already announced, sums to some $189 billion, or around 10% of the size of our economy. 10% of the size of our economy. That is unprecedented in this country. What we'll be doing, as I said, is focusing on those in the front line.
Costa Rica's Congress has approved $500 million line of credit with Development Bank of Latin America to combat the deadly disease, while European Commission approved 3 French state aid schemes to support its economy, mobilizing about $323 billion of liquidity. US Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders said he is focusing on economic bailout instead of presidential race.
To me, this is an incredibly stressful time for everybody in this country. People are worried about getting sick. They're worried about the health of their kids. They're worried about the health of their parents. And we got to move aggressively, obviously, from a healthcare perspective. But at the very least, we should take the burden of financial duress off of people so they don't have that double issue that they have to struggle with.
The economy fallout of COVID-19 has choked global economies and sent global stock markets crashing to historic lows.
Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.